I still mess with the EQ a little bit, but it's just not to fix the sound of the microphone. It's to fix the mix. Hello there. Welcome to the last talking head trombone video that I do in this space. I'm in the process of moving. And today I thought it might be helpful if I talked a little bit about mic selection for trombone, my current mic setup when I do multi-tracks, and what I recommend a beginner use when they begin recording. And in order to do this, I thought talking about the journey about how I got here would be helpful. So first off, it's kind of important to know that recording videos like my multi-tracks are pretty different than recording live trombone. In a live setup, you're usually trying to capture the stereo image of the room with maybe a little extra color for a spot mic. And after a number of years of experimenting, what I'm doing now is kind of the opposite of that. I'm going for more of a mono-dominated sound, so the spot mic is more important, and then adding a little bit of space in color on the sides using a mid-side setup. After all, trombone's a directional instrument, and showing that in my multi-tracks has kind of been a challenge. So to explain how I got to where I'm at now, it probably makes the most sense to go back to the beginning of the channel. In the beginning, it was the pandemic, and I watched a video on how to do a multi-track trombone recording on a program called Audacity by a very well-regarded trombone player who does multi-tracks, and he recommended a condenser microphone, and it's the Audio-Technica AT2020. And to be fair, that video got me addicted to doing the whole multi-track thing, and I'm very grateful. It was a lot of fun, and I'm grateful for the information that he put out. But listening to that video, that mic sounded pretty horrible. It sounded thin and kind of tinny. And at that moment, I realized I wouldn't be satisfied with playing on the cheapest mouthpiece I could find or the cheapest trombone I could find. So why was I okay with my entire sound and all this expensive trombone equipment being captured by the cheapest microphone I could find? And so that led me to Craigslist. I found a guy selling a bunch of Electro Voice RE27ND microphones that he was using for voice capture, like this one right here. In fact, I found him selling this microphone. One big advantage of dynamic microphones is that they're a lot more forgiving. They handle high sound pressures really well, which is great when you play trombone. They're less sensitive to the room. They reject a lot of outside noise. In fact, I have a furnace running right to my left right now. And they don't hype the top end in the same way a lot of cheaper condensers do. So for trombone, that's going to be a really good thing. I also saw that an older version of this same microphone, the RE20, had been used by a lot of well-known vocalists, so I figured it was probably a safe bet. So I pulled the trigger and bought one and did a recording. And it kind of pointed me towards a broader philosophy, which is that mics that tend to sound good on male vocals and mics that tend to sound good on electric guitar also tend to really work well on trombone. The EV27ND is still the microphone I recommend to anyone trying to get into recording trombone and doing these multi-tracks. You can look on the used market, and these EV mics, any version of them, are just built like tanks. So as long as the foam isn't completely rotten, they're usually good to go. Fast forward a little bit later. We're in the middle of the pandemic still, and I'm going down this microphone rabbit hole, and I talked to a friend who was doing a lot of studio recording in Hollywood, and he said he really liked the Royer 121 on tuba, which got me thinking. Once again, Royer 121, great microphone for electric guitar, and great microphone for the right kind of brass player. But I made a mistake in that process. Before I found the Royer, I tried this other microphone called the SE VR1, which is another passive ribbon microphone, thinking it would be close enough to this very expensive microphone, and it just was not as good. So this is another important lesson as you go down the audio rabbit hole. Buy nice or buy twice. This SE VR1 ribbon microphone is a good mic. It just kind of sounds dead in the wrong places on trombone. And I could tell there was something about the sound of a ribbon that would give my playing an analog vibe that I was going for. So I continued to look around for a while, and eventually I found a floor model Royer 121 that I could afford. Ribbons aren't something you typically want to buy used. The ribbon is basically just a really thin piece of aluminum or metal. And if it gets abused a little bit, that ribbon can either stretch out or it could completely tear and be a big problem. So you don't want to get something that's been used on the road for that. So that's what I stuck with for a long time. I would use the Royer 121 in a mono setup, along with mixing a couple tracks with the EV microphone for years. As I moved into my new trombone dungeon, I started going down a different rabbit hole. There's a lot of really heavily processed audio on YouTube, a lot of heavily compressed music, a lot of heavily auto-tune music, and unfortunately I think like the human ear has gotten used to that sound, especially with younger people. And at some point, in my mind, you may as well just be listening to a MIDI file and not a human playing instrument. We've forgotten what live music sounds like, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I prefer my music to sound like a reasonably good professional trombone player playing all the trombone parts. So I started to kind of think about how I could do less processing. And so I started to bring on some outboard analog gear, which helped me make the sound a little smoother, but didn't quite take me to where I wanted to go. So then I started experimenting with a process called mid-side recording. Just really simply, you can look this up elsewhere, but mid-side recording isn't like a typical stereo setup you see for a room where you have like just two condenser mics, usually small diaphragm condenser mics pointed in an X. What it is you have a center mic that captures the mono sound, and you have a side mic, which is usually turned 90 degrees, and it has to have a figure 8 pickup pattern. And so you can mix in as much mid sound or mono sound as you want, but you get a little bit of the mids. My first iteration of trying mid-side was trying to use the Royer 121 as a mid microphone and the SE as the side microphone, because you need the microphone to pick up in a figure 8 pattern. That didn't sound great. It just collapsed in all the wrong ways. I think it might have actually introduced some phasing issues that I wasn't quite aware of at the time. So I decided to try something else. I tried to use my good old EV mic, put it in the sitter, and use the Royer on the side and see what that sounded like. And that was the sound I wanted. It was the first time that I had felt like I was recording in a way that actually sounded like what a trombone sounds like in real life. It was very exciting to me. And this setup I used was on the Ocarina of Time video. Although this version of recording was a little more complicated, and there were definitely some struggles along the way, this new recording technique helped me a lot, and I had to do very little EQ to make the sound right in my head. Essentially, what the mid-side setup did was it gave me a very directional sound, but it also gave you a sense of how wide the sound is. Because, you know, when you play trombone quietly, the sound, if you're doing it right, should kind of spread out. It's a little bit less directional. And as you get louder, it just goes more and more directional. And that's an audio cue that's going to tell any trombonist a lot about what's going on. So fast forward to the summer after I did the Ocarina of Time video and started using mid-side setup. I was playing this random summer gig at like a Pops concert, and I was playing tenor trombone, and a guy I knew as a tenor trombonist was playing bass trombone. It happens, especially on random summer gigs in the middle of Vermont. He was a super nice guy. He was more of a jazz player. He played a little bit with the Saturday Night Live band, and he was very into recording engineering. So I talked to him for a while and I picked his brain, and he recommended the Sennheiser 441 as a microphone I might like. Eventually I found one of those on the used market and I pulled the trigger, and he was absolutely right. The 441 is a dynamic mic. but it leans a little closer to that brighter condenser sound without becoming brittle in a problematic way. And when I found that Sennheiser 441 and that Royer 121 as the side pickups, that was kind of a moment for me where I was happy with how my recording sounded, and I felt like it was a great representation of what I sounded like. I didn't feel the need to do much EQ at all, which is really what I'm after. Don't get me wrong, I still mess with the EQ a little bit, but it's just not to fix the sound of the microphone. It's to fix the mix, which is, I think, really what we're after. If this is something you're interested in, you're probably going to look up these mics and get a little bit of sticker shock. But 1, I bought most of these slightly discounted or used. 2, prices have gone up quite a bit lately. And 3, I didn't buy all of this stuff at once. This was one piece at a time, bought every now and then over a number of years. So it adds up. Just not all at once. And if you buy decent quality gear, it retains its value better over time versus that AT2020 microphone that I started with, that is essentially a paperweight that I use when I want something to sound truly obnoxious. Anyway, I want to talk about a couple quick things, but first, my Chuck Plays the Trombone album of the month, week, whatever we want to call it. And this is an album I listened to all the time in high school, and it's Joel McNeely's soundtrack to the Star Wars novel Shadow of the Empire. And this was a funny one to go back and listen to, because I listened to it a ton as a kid, and I just loved it. And I went and I read an interview with Joel McNeely, the guy that wrote it, and he was like, this was the worst project I've ever done in my life. And I get it. He said he had like 2 weeks to write it all. And as a more mature musician now who's done a lot of recording projects, I get it. A, he was in a rush. That's not fun. B, I can hear it and kind of hear the sloppy transitions between stuff and everything like that. But last, as a musician, it's just a reminder that sometimes these things you just throw together wind up really affecting people and wind up having the most legs. So always make a good effort. And this orchestra sounds great. The brass players, I love it. They're just swinging for the fences. Everyone's just in a rush. If I had to pick one track to listen to, I suppose it would be The Destruction of Caesar's Palace. But it's just worth listening to from beginning to end. It's all good fun. But of housekeeping before I go, I want Chuck Plays the Trombone to be a music channel. And so I've thought about it a lot, and I want to keep doing the talking head videos, but I don't want people that listen to my channel to have talking head videos come up over and over again. So I'm going to keep my latest one active, and after this, you'll see the playlist, and I'll list the playlist and the details, and you can go back and watch any of my older Chuck Talks About Playing the Trombone videos. Last but not least, I am in the middle of a move, and I am trying to sort out a new trombone room setup, which may take some time, but I've already got my last piece that I recorded in this room that I'm very proud of that will be coming out in a few weeks, which is the Eye in the Sky cover. It's such a huge, thick, dense arrangement of the music and tune itself. I'm kind of proud of it because it uses A, all of my skills as an arranger that I've learned over the years, but also B, recording techniques to make something that dense not sound completely muddy is pretty hard to do. So I hope you enjoy that. Also, I don't do this channel for the views, but my views have gone way, way down. So I'm going to try releasing some shorter format videos of my older videos with maybe the music score going underneath it so people can see what's going on and see if that drives some more traffic. So I'll probably be putting a lot of those out this June. So I hope you enjoy this. Anyway, thanks for listening. You have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. And thanks for listening. Bye.